Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome back to another review. Did you know that Hornby produced quite a big railgun, a little bit like Oxford did? Well, that is what I'm going to be unboxing today. So technically speaking, today's model is made by Rivarossi and not Hornby, but of course Hornby do own Rivarossi, and I actually bought mine from Hornby. So it is this. It is a Krupp K5 railgun, and as you can see, this is going to be a fascinating model. Really interested to see what this is like. As I said, I bought mine from Hornby. I bought it from their stand at Whalley for £25, which is clearly way cheaper than Oxford's railgun. Now, am I expecting this to have the same level of detail and quality as Oxford's for going on half the price? No, I don't think so, but it will be really interesting to see how it compares. This is available on hornby.com for £46, which is a bit more expensive, of course. I think they were selling them at a bit of a sale price at Whalley, but it's still cheaper than Oxford's. Unlike Oxford's, though, this is a German railgun, and of course the Oxford railgun was a railgun that was used against the Germans. But no, apparently this one was used by them in World War II. I'll talk more about the history in just a second, but for now, let's get this out and find out what this is like. Okay, so I was not expecting to be reviewing another railgun after the Oxford one. Until I saw this for sale at Whalley, I have to say I didn't realise such a thing existed. Anyway, as you can see, unlike the Oxford railgun, this one appears to ship in 3 separate parts. The wheels appear to be separate. I was trying to think why that would be. Now, I don't know, I'm sure we'll find out. There might be some instructions or something. But the most difficult, the most awkward thing about the Oxford one was getting it on and off the track, mainly getting it on the track. So maybe if you can get the sort of wheels and everything on the track before the gun comes into play, that would make things easier. I guess we'll find out when I test it. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box then, so you can see the price tag first of all. Yeah, I wasn't kidding, it really did cost 25 quid, seems a very good price. So it's HR6452, it's a DRB railway gun K5 in camouflage livery, beige brown, period 2. And yes, there are a few different versions of this. My friend Callum Wilcox, you might know him, he bought one as well in a different livery. In fact, we had to sort of fight out which of us got which one, because I think we were down to the last 2 when we bought them, so nearly didn't get this. Either way, yeah, it's HO scale, as you can also see, so it is a little bit smaller in scale than the Oxford one was, and it is a bit smaller too, so I would say they were similar sizes, weren't they? So, without any further ado, let's lift the lid. I've not had this out yet, so it will be interesting to actually see the thing. Okay, so it's wrapped up pretty nicely and it's got proper foam, which is good. Hopefully that protects it. Let's take the gun piece out to start with then. Okay, yeah, it is well protected, I'll give it that. All right, so there it is. As you can see, this is looking pretty decent. First things first, yeah, it clearly does not have the same level of detail as the Oxford one. That's exactly as I expected it to be, of course, given the price. Value for money, though, seems to be equally good. A model this size is very hard to come by for 25 quid, I'm sure you'd agree. But generally, yeah, this looks alright. It is clearly quite an old model. I wouldn't say this is sort of up to modern standards or anything, but like I say, for the price, it seems very reasonable. So there we go, that's that part. It's looking as though I won't be able to put the whole thing together until it's on a flat surface, otherwise I'm going to risk the whole thing falling to bits on me, aren't I? Okay, the first of the wheel sets. Now this is what has impressed me so far. As you can see, each of these base parts contains 6 sets of wheels, which gives 12 in total, of course. Now, if you buy a pack of 10 wheels from Hornby.com, it costs you £16.99. So to say I've got all of those 10 plus an extra 2 plus a railgun for just a few pounds more than the price of the wheels alone, I think that is absolutely phenomenal. So value for money so far is looking really good, and because of those metal wheels, this piece here is pretty weighty. I will weigh the thing for you just if anyone's interested. Okay, and then the other wheel piece seems to be different. It doesn't seem to be the same moulding. In fact, yes, it does have this end piece on it, so I'll have to not mix these up. As you can see, yeah, it's a very similar thing. It does have couplings on. I don't think they're NEM couplings. No, they don't appear to be. I don't want to start pulling on that too much in case it comes out. But yeah, this is really looking quite good, isn't it? I suppose I'll hold one of the wheel sets up. How do they actually attach to this? Ah, okay, they do have different attachment mechanisms, so this one has to go on that end. Okay, that's really clever, actually. So you never get them mixed up, because one's got a peg and one's got a hole, so it's easy to tell. Okay, so I think that's how they go, is it? Something like that. Wow. Impressive stuff, very nice. So here's a little bit of history on the K5 then, and once that is all done, I will show you this in a bit more detail. So the Krupp K5 was a heavy railgun used by the Germans during the Second World War, and 25 of them were built in total, and they were brought into service in 1940, having been developed in the 1930s. It was quite similar to the British Boschbuster railguns in that the 22-metre long barrel rested on a fixed mounting which only allowed for vertical elevation, and so curved track would be needed in order to aim the weapon. In time, the railguns were even adapted to fire rocket-assisted projectiles, which increased their range, of course, and incredibly, at least 2 examples of these have been preserved. One is currently kept at Fort Lee, Virginia, which is a bit obscure, isn't it, for a German railgun, and the other is in a museum in the north of France, supposedly. So there you have it then, the Rivarossi Krupp K5 up close and personal for you. Now the elephant in the room is that this is nowhere close to Oxford's in terms of its size, its weight, its quality, its detail. However, for the price, I would say the value for money is phenomenally good here. And when I talk about the price, I'm not talking about the 25 quid I spent. I'm talking about that RRP of 46 quid. If you get 15% off as you do at the retailers, we're talking 40 quid. 40 quid for this is incredibly good, I would say. Obviously, the £25 I paid is very, 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 very incredibly good, but that might not be that typical for these. But no, for 40 quid, this seems to be decent. So the features aren't that great compared with the Oxford one. I'll talk about those first of all. As you can see, some of the camouflage livery here isn't all that convincing. It's not done terribly, as you can see. And obviously, this would have been quite haphazard in real life, I suppose. I don't expect there would have been any particular rhyme or reason to it. Possibly they were even done by hand. I'm not really sure how they'd go about doing it in real life. But that is certainly reflected in the way that this has been done. Yeah, it's a little bit messy, isn't it? But not terrible. And like I say, it's supposed to be a bit haphazard, isn't it? The printed details are all right, though. As you can see, we have Dusch, Reichsbahn, Berlin, etc. You do have quite a few various printed details on this, which look pretty good. It is pretty light as well. That's one thing I should say. This weighs in at 185 grams, which is about half of the Oxford railgun. The reason being it is chiefly made of plastic. We don't have any sort of die-cast chassis block on this. And that same thing goes really with quite a lot of the details. All the handrails, as you can see here, are just plastic, and in some places it does show because you can see the flashing there on some parts of it where it's not been moulded all that brilliantly. So yeah, I mean, it is a basic model in some areas, but in others not really so much. I mean, look at the bogies here, for want of a better term. As you can see, there's a lot of moulded detail going on with those, printed detail on them as well, and the fact that the wheels are metal helps this to look like a really quality model. We've got a few nice features as well, such as the loading mechanism here. You can see we do have a projectile loaded into there already, which is free to pivot in and out of the barrel, which is really good. I should say you need to pull it back out the way before the barrel can pivot. And that is something that this model can also do. It's got this beautiful little mechanism here, which allows you to lift it. It's quite high friction, so it doesn't click like the Oxford one did, but it is nice and stiff so that you can let go and it will stay where you put it, at least while it's new, which is really good. And in fact, when I lift it up, you can see underneath there just how much moulded detail there is. Like I say, most of it is just moulded. It's not a very complex model, but I would say for the price, it looks the part, doesn't it? It does the trick. And it's a reasonably impressive piece of rolling stock. I was quite shocked to find that these were as inexpensive as they are. Buffers are just plastic, unfortunately, no springing or anything like that. And as I say, the couplings, unfortunately, while they are quite modern looking, they are the European type and they're not NEM, so you can't swap them out, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a basic model. You can see all the ladders and such are just a part of the moulding, and over on the ends we don't even have any ladders, and I've seen photos of the real thing that did have ladders and such separately fitted. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a terribly faithful representation of the prototype, but rather than looking at the individual details, I think this is one of those models that you have to just take a distant view of and just appreciate it for its size and its presence, of course, because it is a very, very impressive piece of rolling stock. The barrel there is incredibly large. It's even bigger than the Oxford rail barrel, so it's obviously quite a serious railgun. And don't forget, this is HO scale, so if it was made in 00, it would be quite a bit larger. Okay, let's get it down onto the track then and see whether it's as sure-footed on the rails as the Oxford one was. Very interested to see how this plays out. So I've chosen this Fleischmann loco to haul the RailGun. I'm not 100% sure whether this is German or Russian. I've forgotten now. It's a G3, G4, something like that. If you know, please let me know. I've forgotten. Anyway, let's try putting the RailGun onto the track. As you can see, it's ready. It's ready to go. I think I'm going to try what I said earlier, and I'm going to try and put the wheel sets onto the track before I put the gun on and see if that's any easier. And then maybe that's something that this does better than the Oxford one, I suppose, if it's easier to put on and off the track. But let's give this a try. So first wheel set on. This will give me a good opportunity to test how freewheeling it is as well. And actually, to say that has got 6 axles having to turn on there, that is incredibly free, isn't it? It's not bad at all, that. Yep, that's good. Okay, so that one stays about there. And then this one is the same, incredibly free. So it is living up to Rivarossi's reputation, really, of being really ultra good quality, which is really good to see. So now I'm going to line the front of the gun up with that peg, and then hopefully just drop this one on. I think the only difficulty is going to be lining it up with the peg itself. Where is it? It's there. Okay, yeah, that was actually pretty easy to do. I think with a bit more practice, I could easily manage that. Okay, let's get the, whatever it is, G3 I'm going to call it, but it could be a G4 to couple. There we go. There's another look at the loco if you're interested. The coupling did work well, must be said, as you can see, very nice. And with that, let's send it off around the room and see how it goes on. I'm a bit worried it might smack some of my scenery and such. But you don't know until you try, and let's be honest, it doesn't really matter if my scenery gets broken, because it's all rubbish anyway. So, here we go. So let's see how it handles curves. First of all, you'll notice my Oxford one is on the track, ready to go in a sec. Hopefully that's safe there. Yeah, seems to be. The tree did get tickled on the way past, but it's not been knocked. So it's done the second radius part, so that's really good. Oh, I didn't think about the footbridge, I don't think it hit it though. Okay, I think that's a pass so far. Yeah, very good. And it does look awesome, doesn't it? It really does. From any kind of distance, it looks awesome. So that is an entire lap without issue. This thing is just as good as the Oxford, I would say, where performance is concerned. I've even tried it at some speed over points, and it's just unshakable. It stays on the track no matter what, which given its size is pretty impressive. So obviously all of the sort of pivoting and the articulation works really, really well, and it can handle reasonably tight curves. I've tried it up to second radius, and it's absolutely fine. So very, very impressive stuff is that. Well, I've talked about it quite a lot already, so I've got to run it. I've also got the Oxford RailGun. In fact, it's the Boom 01 train pack, I think it is, with, of course, the Dean Goods. So there we go. As you can see, quite a bit more impressive, that one. But I would say they're both good models in their own right. So yes, RailGuns. They certainly are a lot of fun, aren't they? I just love seeing them. Something really cool about them. And I've got to say, the Rivarossi one is pretty decent. So, I mean, if you always fancied the Oxford one but didn't want to spend that sort of money on a novelty, maybe this one's a better option for you. I don't know. It's perfectly adequate, though, isn't it? Yeah, looks really good. Love it. So here are some of my ratings then for the Rivarossi RailGun, which is great fun, I have to say. The level of detail though, I have just given 3 stars. Now that I'm familiar with the Oxford RailGun, this one does seem quite basic in comparison. Most of the details are just a part of the moulding, whereas the Oxford had all sorts of different details, such as wheels, chains, separately fitted handrails, ladders, all of that good stuff. This didn't have any of that, but there was a lot of moulded detail to see, and at least most of the decoration was reasonably good. The performance though is absolutely rock solid. I've tried this on points, I've tried this on all sorts of different curves around the layout. It hasn't derailed once. It really is rock solid, so I have to give the performance 5 stars. The quality I've just given 3. It is quite light for a piece of rolling stock of this size. As I've already said, it's half the weight of the Oxford RailGun because it is all plastic. There's no sort of heavy metal chassis block on this one, unfortunately. And also some of the moulding wasn't 100% brilliant either. There was a fair bit of flashing on some of the different parts, but generally the build quality besides that is pretty good, I would say. Value for money then is where this really, really shines, because for about 40 quid, which is the retailer's price, this is a really good price. And of course, if you can get it at a train fare for 25 quid, you'd be crazy not to go for it. So yeah, I can highly recommend it for the money for sure. Overall then, that is 7.62 out of 10. Not a bad score at all for a piece of rolling stock. Into the rolling stock logbook it goes. There we go, third, just above the Hornby 20-ton brake and below the Hornby mineral wagons. Yeah, that's really quite good. So let me know then, guys, how would you rate this out of 5? I think for me it's definitely a solid 4 out of 5 if we're taking the value for money into account. Obviously, as a scale model, it's not that great, but for what it costs, I think it's absolutely fine. Really, really good. So that was great fun. I've realised I love reviewing unusual rolling stock. I just really find it interesting. So I hope you did as well. Hopefully it's not just a weird video for you guys. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, of course. Do let me know down in the comments what you thought. Was I too generous? Was I not generous enough? Do let me know what you thought. But for now, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your company. Hope you enjoyed it, as I say. And I will see you very soon on the next one. All right. Cheers, folks. Take care.